Yes, hello everyone. Welcome back to another video here on An Cluiche with me, Seamus Brady, our host. Steve got dinner Fulcher Ashkady Chlorella and show Aaron Clare. I'm joined by Aaron Prendergast, the man behind Gaelic Games Fan TV. A different time for the episode this weekend, obviously with the bank holiday. I was out myself last night enjoying the weekend and everything like that. Aaron, did you enjoy the banquet? And then also, did you enjoy the weekend's action?
Yeah, I did, Seamus. Yeah, cheers for having me on. Yeah, it was a great weekend. Good weekend of football and hurling. Like we got to see pretty much every game, really. Like every game was on. Like even the Joe McDonagh Cup games, I think were on Clubber. So like we got to see very much everything, which was absolutely great. You know, there was no clashes or anything like that. It's probably how it should be in terms of a selection of a few games. You get to watch them all, digest them all, even though some of them were on GA Go, maybe, which I know some people still aren't happy about. But yeah, look, you know, Wexford Galway was a great game on Saturday. Again, probably threw up another shock for the Leinster Hurling Championship. Waterford Tip had plenty of contentious issues and went down to the wire, and you didn't really know what way that was going to go going down the home stretch. And then obviously in football, as I was saying to you, like Kerry and Clare probably went a lot closer than people thought. And watching the final 5-10 minutes, it wasn't the complete dead game that everyone expected, albeit Kerry always looked comfortable. And then obviously, yeah, like the Galway Mayo game, I think that game probably went how we expected. It was going to go either way. And in the end, it was Galway that snatched it.
Yeah, it certainly was. I mean, like everything across that weekend was very, very good. And look, we're going to start off with the Leinster Hurling Championship. And this game, I mean, it's not that Wexford won, it's how comfortably Wexford won. And we have to give a big shout out to Matthew, of course. He was the person who called Wexford would win. Myself and yourself said that it would be a draw. That's what we went for. It was nowhere near a draw. It was nowhere near even a close Wexford win. Wexford absolutely dominated this game. Like an absolutely big response. Early second half goal from Rory O'Connor pushed Wexford 4 points ahead, and they never look back from that. And like this point for Galway, slightly worrying now, because all of a sudden with Wexford's defeat to Antrim and now Wexford beating Galway, the Leinster Championships looks more open than it has for a long, long time.
Absolutely, yeah. Like you couldn't call now who's going to get into a Leinster final. I think we'd all be fairly certain Kilkenny will end up in there. I think they're the one team that probably they might lose to Wexford on the final game, but they'll probably already be in a Leinster final at that point because they're going to be Carlow and Dublin in the next two games. So yeah, like I mean, it is completely wide open, you know, and yeah, what a result, what a performance from Wexford, to turn it around.
How doing this though? Like, how do Wexford constantly lose to a Westmeath and Antrim and then beat a Galway or Kilkenny like immediately after? Like, as I was saying to you, it's not that they won this game, it's that they've won it by 8 points. Like, it's not even close.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of factors, really. I think like Wexford are a good team, and even when they lost to Antrim, I don't think anyone was saying, "Oh, Wexford are done" or "Wexford are going backwards" or "That's them finished now" for a long time. But like it was just one of them things where they got completely caught, and they took that. They were complacent in the game versus Antrim. They got caught, and Antrim turned them over and beat them. Whereas in this game, they were bang up from it right from the first whistle. Like you could tell the crowd in Wexford Park were 100% behind Wexford. I don't think there was a huge amount of Galway fans there, if I'm being honest, and I don't think the Galway public have really bought into Henry Shefflin now. I think they are starting to lose a lot of patience just looking around social media and I suppose what the experts are saying and everything else. I think a lot of people now are losing patience with Galway. So it was a combination of factors. Like Galway, like to be fair, in the first half, like Wexford were leading by 2. It was fairly even. I thought Galway would have been relatively happy, you know, because you were expecting Wexford to start fast, especially after what happened against Antrim. You were expecting them to come all guns blazing, really put Galway on the back foot. And I actually thought Galway dealt with that well. Like they kept themselves in the game, like a couple of nice points from Conor Whelan. Evan Nyland was as clinical as ever on frees. But then it was like as soon as that Rory O'Connor goal went in, Galway's heads just completely dropped and they just stopped doing the basics. And the amount of times they were trying to run it through the middle, they were getting turned over. They were just hitting aimless long balls and hope, just expecting things to stick. It was just a real hit and hope game from Galway, really. And like the most telling part is when Keane Byrne gets sent off with 20 minutes to go. Wexford were leading by 6 at that point.
Not only winning by 8 points, but doing well a man down. Donald injury, like obviously that did impact Galway's ability, but like still, that being said, having 15 on the pitch, like it shouldn't be. Like it should be Galway that go into the ascendancy, especially towards the end there. But for Wexford to kick on when they got a man sent off is pretty spectacularly bad on Galway's part.
It is, yeah. Like, and Galway never looked, because usually, like in these games, like you'd see Galway try and work. They're trying to work goals because they got to the stage where they needed a goal. They needed something to just kickstart themselves. Like we saw it in the Waterford Tipperary game, where Tipperary need a goal towards the end, hit a long ball into John Keneally, and then that's how the goal comes from there. Whereas Galway just never done that. Like they were just, even like we saw Patrick Horgan's goal against Clare last week. Galway had a couple of chances like that, and they just popped the ball over the bar. They almost look happy to lose the game, and there was just no fight about them whatsoever. And yeah, like the fact that the lead actually grew, like Wexford actually outscored Galway when they had a man down. Like they actually ended up beating them by more. Like, so yeah, it really was like a disastrous result for Galway, and it's going to be tough for them, like to see, because like if they don't even make a Leinster final, like even if they finish third, like, it's just going to be very hard to turn it around from here. Like,
well, that's what I'm talking about. Is like the last thing is it's not that Galway had like lost out on games and everything like that. It's that when you look at, say for example, the way that they lost to Limerick in last year's All Ireland semi-final, they were outclassed. The way that they've been beaten by Kilkenny, or they failed to beat Kilkenny, like it gives off that they just really are struggling to get over the line against the Cats, especially when you consider that this year Kilkenny were without Adrian Mullen, Owen Murphy, Owen Cody, Michael Carey, away in Pearse Stadium, and Kilkenny still probably should have won that game. Galway saved a late draw. And again, as I was saying, this result, it's the way you lost. You lost by 8 points to a Wexford side that went down to 14 men, and they kicked on when they got the man sent off. So I think you're right. Like when you look at social media, there are a lot of people who are a bit disillusioned with Sheffield now. Like they're not fully backing that this is going to end in All Ireland success. And like my question back to you then is, do you think in 2 years' time he's still the Galway manager?
No, I don't even think he'll be there next year, to be honest with you. I think like this is year 3, and like fair enough, the last 2 years, like they lost to Kilkenny with a late goal in the Leinster final. They then obviously lost to Limerick, which can happen. You look at the last 2 years and you kind of say, all right, haven't been a million miles away, but now it's a bit like Clare, for example. Like Clare probably in somewhat of a similar boat. Like you need to see progression, you need to see them kick on. And for Galway, we're just not seeing that. It looks like they're going backwards. And I think if they don't get to a Leinster final, even if they finish third, provided they don't, do anything crazy in the All Ireland series, I'd be very surprised to see him there next year. Like I think there's good managers within Galway, I think, who would be very willable to take the position. I even think Joe Canning mightn't be a bad outside shout potentially coming in as manager there. He seems to be eyeing it up. So and like the thing is as well is that I was looking at it, the Galway team that won the All Ireland in 2017, like I think there's still 7 or 8 or 9 players in that team that are in this Galway team now, and like they just don't really seem to have evolved. Like there's a few young lads that have come in, like Gavin Lee's look good, Tom Monaghan's look bright, but they probably haven't introduced enough younger lads, enough younger players, and you just feel like they're very stagnant, really, to be honest.
Yeah, and then this is the crazy thing, which brings it back to this, is like while we always talk, like we're 2 dubs, we're always talking about Dublin hurling and that we do struggle to get over the line against counties that are probably All Ireland contenders, but one county we have had relatively okay performance against over the last few years is Galway. And Jerry's comment here says if Dublin beat Carlow and Galway, that would be enough to put them into a Leinster final, regardless of results elsewhere. And when you think over the last few years, we drew with Galway last year in a game that we could have won. We beat them in 2021 when they had Shane O'Neill as boss. And to be honest, that day, Galway thought that they were going to walk over Dublin. And we beat them in 2019, which was ironically Micheál Donoghue's last match as Galway boss. And now he's a Dublin manager. Like, if you're looking at it this way, is this not the ideal chance for Dublin to actually beat Galway?
It definitely is. 100% is. Like I think we played them away, which might be difficult. I think we played them in their own stadium, from what I know, because we played them in Crow Park last year. But 100% is like the opportunity. 100% is there for Dublin. There's no doubt about that. But look, I think Antrim will be thinking the same thing. I think Wexford will be thinking the same thing as well. And it's, you know,
So we've
like,
already beaten Carlow, but I'm
mm,
assuming the Ger meant Antrim there.
mm.
But Antrim and Galway, like that should be okay to get us through.
I think so. Like, regardless of what happens in the Kilkenny game, I think one thing you'd want to see in the Kilkenny game from a Dublin perspective is just not us getting absolutely hammered. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because I think score difference could play a part here, and that could be maybe what catches Antrim in the end, because they obviously lost by 30 points. Do you know that way? But yeah, it's looking good, and it puts Wexford 100% back in the mix now, because they're, you know, like, they're one team that, like, I mean, I've seen something like Wexford will probably go out and lose to Carlow and then beat Kilkenny, but do you know what I mean? But
like this is what I mean. Knowing what Wexford are like, to lose to Antrim and then to beat Galway by 8 points, they have Kilkenny and Carlow next. What are the odds of them beating Kilkenny and losing to Carlow?
yeah, like it would be the most
Quite
Wexford
high.
thing. Yeah,
It'd be
but
something that they would
surely they'll have to learn from the Antrim loss, though, and they'll have to make
Because
sure it doesn't
surely
happen.
Rossiter would be thinking, like, lads, if we can just put 2 performances back to back, please. Like, their run makes no sense. I think you highlighted that stat that they've 5 wins in the round robin since it kicked off. Sorry, since they won Leinster last time in 2019. And I think 3 of them are over, like, Kilkenny and Galway. Which obviously now you can add another one onto that. Like, it's crazy. Their record is just unbelievable. I do think it is that. I think they stick their chests out a bit too much when they're favourites, and that they get a bit more rebellious when they're the underdogs. Whereas I feel like Dublin, much more respectful of what level we think we're at. And we don't tend to put it up to teams that are above us, but we tend to be a lot more consistent and win games where we are favourites. Now, this game was one of the most talked games of the weekend. Waterford against Tipperary. It finished Waterford 321, Tipperary 127 in Walsh Park. And you've seen, I'm sure, that clip of Davy Fitz on the GA Go's social media page is just slapping the Waterford lads on the back as they're coming in. Like, don't let them bully us in our own patch and everything like that. Like, there's no love lost between Davy Fitz and Liam Cahill. So this was obviously going to be a tasty game right from the start. It finishes in a draw. I think, is it possible that both teams are unhappy with that result?
Yeah, to a certain extent, I think they both will be. Like, Waterford had the game; they were 4 points up, going down. You know, going into injury time. Should have saw the game out. Should have got over the line and won it. Tipperary will feel disappointed as well, because they missed big chances, but also probably a fair share of decisions went against them. Like, obviously I think the big talking point is obviously the penalty, which obviously James Owens is running across
that is ridiculous.
Of Barry Hogan. Yeah, it was just crazy, like, absolutely crazy. Like, and to be fair, look, penalty could have been retaken and it probably would have went in the net. Like, it's not a guarantee that necessarily Hogan would have saved it, but you have to at least replay the penalty.
Like, let's be real about that, right? So we did the episode obviously talking about things that we'd like to see implemented into the GAA. And one of the main changes that I'd recommend is just, obviously, respect to the referees and everything like that. And, like, you know, no verbally abusing them, no ever putting hands on them or anything like that. But then on the flip side of that, you have to ask yourself, what on earth is James Owens thinking? He runs across the eye line of Barry Hogan as that penalty is being taken. And I think there's like a freeze frame of it where, as the ball is being struck, James Owens is still in the eye line of Barry Hogan. And you wonder, like, what on earth was going through his brain to run across that? And that's the flip side. Do we need more respect for referees in our games? Absolutely. But when incidents like that happen, where it just looks comical, what is he doing? That, again, that question needs to be put to him. What were you doing? Why did you run across the goalkeeper just before a penalty was taken? That's like he's trying his best to put him off.
Yeah, it was bizarre, to be honest with you. It was obviously just a complete moment of madness. I don't think, you know, like, you wouldn't think he done it intentionally. When you look at it, you're kind of like, why else would he be there? It was bizarre. It was obviously just an absolute brain freeze moment of absolute craziness. Like, but like as well though, like not to have the awareness though to be like, right, that's that, like, okay, because you can see Barry Hogan like completely putting his arms out. Surely, like he knew, like, because he was sprinting to get out of the way, so he knew more than anyone. Do you know what I mean? That ball was like, and it could have nearly hit him as well. Do you know what I mean? And maybe,
Could you imagine if it had hit him?
Yeah, like
But like,
absolutely.
what, to not even say I ran across the goalkeeper, even for the Waterford player taking it, even for the shooter, that's distracting. That should have been a retake. My bad. Retake the penalty.
Yeah.
But then again, if Waterford had missed that penalty, I think there would have been a lot of people complaining. Look, he just shouldn't have done it. He shouldn't have ran across the player. Like, I mean, that's really ridiculous decision to take on his part. And I completely agree. Like, more respect in our games. Incidences like the Mount Bellew Moylock, where they're all getting around the ref and putting hands on him. Incidents like the that idiot last year that shoved the referee onto the ground after the Tullamore game. Like, those incidents need to be like never, ever, ever allowed to happen again. And anybody who verbally abuses a referee or puts hands on a referee needs strong punishments for doing so. But then on the same side, you need accountability taken from referees when they absolutely interfere with the goalkeeper and the striker in a penalty incident like that. Like, if a player does that, if a player runs across the box the way that James Owens did, it's a retake and he's probably getting a yellow card. Like, so how on earth is James Owens, what he's doing anything different?
Yeah, like, I mean, and there was multiple decisions from James Owens as well. Like, even looking at it, like you obviously had Mark Yeo who looked like he was potentially being fouled. And Tipperary could have had a shout on for a penalty. Like, Cathal Barrett at one stage was completely floored. And then Bennett ends up putting the ball over the bar. Kevin Mahoney at one stage like was booked in the build up for a third man tackle in the build up to Jack Prendergast's goal. He was booked for it, but the goal wasn't, like, the goal was still allowed. So it was like, yeah, like, I mean, Tipperary can definitely feel fairly hard done by here, and that's why, like, they'll be relieved a little bit to get a draw, because if they had a lost this, they were 100% gone. There's no way they would have come back. A draw.
They're still very near the door though, and I think, like, for Waterford, I think it's a big missed opportunity for Waterford.
Yeah, it is, because a win for Waterford would have done it, like, and they wouldn't have really had to worry. The Clare and Limerick game would have been just a bonus to try to get to a Munster final.
Well, that's the next question in for us. Will Waterford take any points away from Clare or Limerick?
They could against Limerick, because if Limerick beat Cork next week, they're on 6 points. That's them, you'd have to imagine, already in a Munster final. Waterford have, like, even last year against Limerick, they nearly beat them. Do you know what I mean? So, like, it was actually probably one of Waterford's best performances in the championship last year. I know they obviously,
and that opened the door to Clare obviously finishing the job and beating Limerick in round 2.
Yeah, so it could happen. It's probably the best time to play Limerick in the final game when they're already through. Will they take out from Clare? Probably not. Limerick,
I don't think they'll take anything from either of them. That's why I think it's a massive, massive missed opportunity, and I actually think Cork could pip them into the third spot. I really think so. I think Cork could pip them into third, because I would back Cork to beat Tipperary right now. And I just could see a situation where it gets shook up enough that Cork slip in ahead of them.
Yeah, like, the big one is next weekend though, because if Cork lose to Limerick, then I don't think they can catch Waterford, because they're three points behind them. So the big one is Limerick. If they can get a draw, then maybe then that gives them a chance. But they need to get something from that.
They definitely do. Jay has a funny comment in. He says, time to lift the mandatory retirement age for refs and bring back John Keenan. I mean, John Keenan wouldn't have ran across the penalty there anyway. So maybe it's worth having to think about anyway. But yeah, for Tipperary on the other side, just before we carry on from this game, a word on them. Obviously, Liam Cahill gave his interview after. He was saying it was very hard 6 days for them. They got off to an awful start against Limerick, and they had obviously all the criticism and everything like that. They've gone away to Walsh Park. They were 4 points down. They did fight back and get a draw. But like, what shape do you kind of see them in heading into the rest of the Munster Championship?
Yeah, it's a hard one to know, to be honest. I think like the main thing here was that they did show fight and they did show battle, because you know, like they didn't show that at all really in the Limerick game. Like they were completely blown out of the water, blown out of the gate. So at least like they gave themselves something. They gave their fans something going into the next two games. Like, can they beat Cork? That game's obviously in the final game. It could be possible that that's a dead rubber the way things are going. But they'll need to try and get something from Clare at least to give themselves a chance. But yeah, look, I mean, like Jake Morris scored 3 points. Mark Yo was good with 4 points. Owen Connolly, 2 points from him. He was very good. You know, like, and even you know, like Alan Tynan 2 from him, Grode O'Connor 4. So like a few of the younger lads who came in and a few of the changes all made an impact, and like they didn't drop their heads when there was like, even when they conceded that early goal and you were thinking, oh, this doesn't look good now. This does not look good. But they kept themselves in it and they never went away, which was, I think, was the most important thing. At the same time, though, they probably do look a good bit off where they should be. And like, even if they were to get out of Munster, I don't think anybody would see them progressing beyond the semi-final.
Yeah, no, I think that they're not better than they were last year. I remember watching the Tipperary Limerick game last year and thinking, geez, Tipper actually in a great spot as well. Like, I remember thinking that Tipperary probably should have beaten them in that game. This year, like, they were a million miles off them, and like, I'm not as confident in their squad that I was this time last year, because the main thing that I'm looking at them is that I don't think they know who their best centre half back is. I don't think they know who to put there. I think if they could make two Ronan Mars, I think they put them a full back and centre back, but they don't, and they don't think they can decide where to put Ronan, where to put Owen Connolly, where to put Brian O'Mara, where to put Brian McGrath. And you would have thought that with the league, Cahill would have had that figured out. He seems to take the league absolutely super duper seriously, but it wasn't to be. Now, also on the weekend, we had the John McDonough's round 3, and obviously the one result that everyone was watching was Kerry against Laois. Laois went away to Kerry and beat them by 125 to 18 points in Austin Stack Park. Laois have very much stamped themselves right from the word go as the team in the John McDonagh Cup. The way that they've dispatched of Meath and the way that they beat Offaly in round 1, like, they absolutely look on a one-way ticket out of the competition at the current moment in time.
Yeah, they absolutely do. Like, they were 1-3 up after about 8 minutes. Like, it was a 7-point win for Laois, but it was very comfortable, very, very comfortable. In fairness, and yeah, like, especially with results elsewhere, like, which I'm sure we'll get onto, like Westmeath losing to Down. I think that puts Westmeath. I think they were out of conversation anyway, but they're 100% out of the conversation now. So yeah, I think top performance from Laois, like Adrian Dunphy, 11 from him. Tomas Keys 1-1, Stephen Picky-Marr 3 points. So yeah, I think Laois will be absolutely delighted. And in fairness to Kerry, like, they've had a good year so far, with 2 wins from 2. You know, will they get to the Joe McDonagh? It's hard to know. It probably will go to when they play Offaly. That will be the game where it maybe decides if they can get in. But in saying that, though, it's been good for Kerry hurling, because it looked maybe like they were going to be closer to relegation, potentially at the start of the year, and they've proven again that they can compete with these teams, which I think is important for Kerry hurling.
It certainly is, especially with the news that obviously Shane Conway was going to be absent and everything like that. Like, a lot of doubts were creeping in, but I think they've done really well up until this game. Laois have very much found their mojo again, like, to get a 10-point win, as you're mentioning, players like Picky-Marr and everything like that, even Paddy Purcell and Rowland, like, who have been around the block and then some with Laois, all leading from the front in this campaign. Like, it's like they found their mojo again that they had in the Eddie Brennan years and everything like that, and they certainly look on the one-way ticket out of the John McDonagh. They've looked like they're a class above teams, to be honest. They are looking how I expected Westmeath to look, if I'm 100% honest. Westmeath don't look at that level at all. They drew it down in Ballycran, 319 to 125. So that's in their first 3 games, 2 defeats and a draw. And I would have backed them to win all 3 of those games. The only one I was seeing as a potential dangerous one for Westmeath was the Laois one. And like to lose 2 and draw 1, I mean, for Joe Fortune's men, it's a bit of a head scratcher when you saw how well that they were performing in the league and everything like that, and how well they performed in the Leinster Championship last season. Bit of a confusing one.
Yeah, it does seem to be a common trend, though, teams who drop down from Leinster into the Joe McDonagh, they do tend to struggle for a year or two. Like even Laois, it's taken Laois a couple of years nearly to sort of get back to, obviously they were in the Leinster Championship for large parts, then went down to the Joe McDonagh, and they've sort of struggled there for a couple of years, and now it looks like this is the year where they're going to bounce back up. We saw similar happen to Carlow, we saw similar happen to Offaly, and now we're seeing it with Westmeath, and it is, like at the start of the year, before the championship, I backed them to win the Joe McDonagh, to be honest, just because I thought even in a couple of games they were fairly competitive enough in Division 1.
I thought they just upped the level in general, that this was the level they play at, so they'd be.
Yeah,
but ironically, it's Offaly and Laois that look the most deadly.
Yeah, and you have David Williams, Killian Doyle, 2 top players there, but David Williams doesn't seem to, for whatever reason, I think he's been in and out through injury. He hasn't always been featuring. Killian Doyle's obviously been a bright spark, but fair play to Down. Look, I mean, Down do tend to pull off these couple of results. They're another team that we probably look at and think they should be thereabouts in relegation, but very often they're pulling off big results and they're pulling off big shocks. And fair play to Down Hurling. It's great to see them getting results and being competitive in this competition.
Certainly, and I think that the home advantage, the fact the game was in Ballycran, I think that definitely helped them. But home advantage definitely didn't help Meath much in this game. Awfully 5-31, Meath 3-16 in Port Talton. So that's 2 games in a row that Meath have been torn limb from limb. And the thing is that ironically in both of those games they've actually put up decent scores. 3-16 isn't a bad scoreline to put up, but Offaly just absolutely tore them apart at the other end. I mean, really showcasing the flair they have up front in this one.
Yeah, it's a tough one for Meath, really. They're probably too good for the Christie ring. They've won that the last couple of times they've been in it. But then when they've been in the Joe McDonagh, they've gone straight back down. So it's kind of hard to really know what to do with them. But fair play to Offaly. All of their 6 starting forwards all scored. Owen Cahill got 6 points as well. Dan Burke at 1-3, Kieran Mitchell at 1-7. So I think overall, Offaly would be chuffed to win the game quite convincingly. And look, Meath still got a scoreline of 3-16, which I think they'll be happy with. But ultimately, it was an absolute hammering, in fairness.
Yeah, it was ripped apart. And my stance hasn't changed on the Joe McDonagh from round 1. At the start of it, I was saying Westmeath, but from round 1 on, I've really had my eye on Laois. To the way they beat Offaly in round 1 made me sit up and take notice. It's been doubled down on ever since. The way that they beat Meath and the way that they beat, of course, Kerry, it's really made me think they're out of here. They've had enough of the Joe McDonagh and they want to go back up to the Lee McCarthy Cup, which is fantastic because you're obviously the Joe McDonagh 10 years ago was a competition that you yo-yoed back up from. The minute you went down, you came straight back up. Now you see Offaly, Laois, Westmeath, Antrim all up in their levels, to the point where they're able to compete when they go up to the Lee McCarthy Cup and not just be the whipping boys and get sent back down. So that's it with the hurling. We're done with the hurling. We're moving on to the football now, and we're moving to the more competitive provincial final. And this one was pretty much the main game on Sunday. The main talking points were all from this game. It finished Galway 16 points, Mayo 15 points. A late free by Conor Gleeson wins Galway their 3rd Connacht Championship in a row. Incredible finish.
Yeah, it was. You couldn't believe it. Galway were 2 points down going into injury time. It was looking like Mayo we're gonna get over the line. It was very even game. I think a draw going into extra time probably would have been the fair result. I don't think there was really a standout winner in the game. I think Mayo done very well turning Galway over consistently. They probably had the better of turnovers. They were making better use of the ball, I felt. Whereas Galway struggled in terms of scoring points from play. The majority of their points were from frees and place balls and everything else. But look, fair play to Galway. They dug deep. They had to. They have to show character. I think it's something that has been questioned under Galway and Pádraig Joyce. And and they got over the line. They got the job done. In fairness, like maybe some of the frees towards the end were a little bit soft. I do think the free that Conor Gleeson scored, I do think was quite soft, to be honest with you. I think we've saw on multiple occasions referees can give a free the other way for those. Do you know that way? Especially when hits are coming in, and like there was a few of them that were going on his back and everything. So could have been a foul the other way. But look, in the end, Galway got their chance and they took it. And that's what happens in these tight games. Sometimes you get the look, sometimes you don't. But in saying that, I do think Mayo do have to take a huge portion of the blame here, though, because even before that free was given to Gleeson, like just move the ball, get rid of the ball, like move it, like just kick the ball, get it long, like get it away from there. Like Galway, like especially after they get Shane Walsh scores that point to put a 15 apiece. Like even Colm Reap on his kick out, like take your time with it, like just relax. Slow it down, and like because Galway, like you could hear the fans and everything, they were bang up for it. You knew if Galway had a chance to turn the ball over, they were going to win it. And that's even when Gleeson's coming up to take that free, because like there wasn't really that, like there was pressure on him, but there wasn't a huge amount of pressure on him, because if he puts it wide, well, it's going to extra time anyway, and we were 2 points down in injury time, so it happens, So when he was coming up to take it, I was fairly certain he was going to put it over the bar, because it was like it's not that. It's different, obviously, if you're kicking to level the game.
If you're kicking to level the game, there's way more pressure. That's 100%. What I was saying about even Shawnee O'Shea's kick against Dublin in 2022 is a good example as well, because there's an element of Stephen Brooks against Kerry in 2011 is just put the ball dead. Just make sure you do not drop it short. And
that's
then they get the runners. Put your boot through it. If it goes wide, it goes wide. It doesn't matter. I think that was at play with the Gleeson kick.
100%, yeah. Like, and it was a brilliant kick. It was a brilliant kick, in fairness. And yeah, like Mayo had a kind of a half chance, obviously, to level it. I think Cillian O'Connor, to be fair, had to kick it. That chance at the end. I think David Goff was probably quite generous to even have allowed play continue for that long, to be honest with you. He had to go for it at that stage. There was no other option. And yeah, like I think ultimately could have went either way, but I think for Mayo and for Kevin McStay, game management has been a key problem for Mayo for numerous years. And when you look at Mayo, I don't really think they've actually changed that much from James Horan. They maybe look a little bit better defensively, a little bit better with turnovers, but the same sort of crazy Mayo-esque games, unfortunately, are still very much a thing. And like, I don't know, like you just look at them and think they've got like Ryan O'Donoghue's a great forward. Tommy Conroy has obviously had a numerous amount of injury issues. Doesn't unfortunately look the same player as he did sort of 2021, 2020 when he first burst on the scene. And obviously, injuries probably have a part to play in that. You're looking at their forwards and they don't really have that much outside of Ryan O'Donoghue now. Fergal Boland's chipping away a little bit here and there. Aidan O'Shea's doing his thing, but we all know he's not a scoring forward. So, like, it's one of them scenarios for Mayo where do they have enough really to be an All-Ireland contender? I don't really think they do, to be honest.
Well, I think their 2017 team, I think, beats this team easy.
100%, yeah.
Like, I think that they have gone backwards. And I think, like, I don't know, man. Like, it's one of the funniest things that, like, they timed having that, obviously not deliberately, but they got that 2017 team at the time where Dublin had the best team of all time. I think if that Mayo team was in the championship now, I think that they would be good enough to win the All-Ireland now. I think that they would be one of the favourites. Like, if that Dublin team, which we're all agreeing on, is the greatest team of all time, then the Mayo team who pushed them to a replay in 16 and only lost by a point in that replay and then lost by a point in 2017 also has to be one of the best teams of all time. I know that they didn't win, but if they push the best team of all time to the pin of their colours, they have to be right up there as one of the greatest teams we've seen. Definitely the greatest team never to win an All-Ireland. 100%.
Yeah. Even with that though, like they were an unbelievable team, and it probably was the best Mayo team maybe ever, potentially, or maybe the team in the 50s was better. I'm not entirely sure, but like even at
different
that
game.
though,
different game.
Like, completely different. Yeah, but even that Mayo team though used to always make life so difficult for themselves. Like they would get beaten Like Stephen Rochford has never won a Connacht title, which is absolutely
That is
mental.
absolutely insane.
Do you know what I mean? Like, and Mayo used to always, they always do this to themselves. Like, they always, like, even I remember qualifier games against Cork and Derry, and this was when Derry were back in, Division 3, Division 4. Like, and Mayo barely got over the line against those teams. They'd go to extra time and everything else. And, like, they'd always just struggle to put teams away. They'd struggle with game management. You look at it last year against Louth as an example. Barely got over the line that day, and they are just such an unusual team. They have the capabilities to turn up, perform, and give it to any team in the country. But at the same time,
but my thing is, man,
you always just feel like there's a huge mental fragility within them.
Yeah, like I agree with you, but like one of the things that was always said about Mayo is that okay, they might struggle in the qualifiers, or they might struggle in the group stages of the All Ireland or whatever the championship structure is at the time. But then they'll always lift it when they play against Kerry or Dublin. Do they anymore? The last 2 years, they've been outclassed by Dublin and by Kerry at the quarterfinal stages. They've been held at arm's length.
Yeah. It's a hard one to know.
Are they at that level now where their ceiling can go that high? Or is it just Derry, Kerry and Dublin that are able to go that high? Because if you look at it, nobody's picking Mayo for the All-Ireland this year. There was a lot of people who were picking them last year. Not many people picking them this year.
Yeah, it does seem that way. Like, they did beat Kerry in Killarney last year, but obviously that was the group stage's first game. It was kind of a hard one to judge, like, where Kerry really at it that day, probably not. But overall, yeah, like, especially in big knockout games. And the thing is, there was that Mayo game against Kerry, there was no pressure for them there, because like they were going to Killarney, where Kerry hadn't lost, I think, in donkey's years in the championship. Mayo went there and beat them, but ultimately it didn't actually mean anything in the grand scheme of things, because like we both knew Mayo and Kerry were getting out of the group, and in the end, Kerry actually won the group and Mayo finished third. So it actually meant
because they lost to Cork.
So it meant nothing in the end. And that's another example. Like, when huge pressure seems to be on Mayo, they always seem to crumble, unfortunately. And against Galway, 2 points up in injury time, just managed the game a little bit better. Do you know what I mean? And they didn't at all. And like, fair enough, you could argue maybe the free from Conroy on John Maher, like, you could argue Conroy gets to it first, but there is a follow through. So he's given Goff a decision to make. And then you've obviously got like the decision at the end. So look, it's one of them where maybe Mayo can feel a little bit aggrieved, but unfortunately we have seen this very too often with Mayo. But bizarrely though, they go into arguably the easier group stage.
Yeah, that was it. Look, it definitely didn't affect the game. I mean, a lot of people were saying, myself included in the preview, that it might affect, their reactions after the game. But Galway were absolutely delighted to have won that. And they weren't thinking, oh, we're going into a difficult group. Like, they couldn't care less about what group they're going into. They've won provincial silverware. But yeah, so Galway Connacht champions. They win their first Connacht title, first Connacht final win over Mayo since 2008, which is an extraordinary amount of time that they've gone without beating their biggest rivals in a Connacht final. Obviously, they have beaten them, but it has not been in the final since 2008. So Roscommon have really been low-key spoiling the party for Galway and Mayo over the last 10 years and everything like that. But we're going to move on to the other provincial final that we saw. It was Kerry against Clare at Cusack Park in Ennis. Kerry won this game 23 points to Clare's 113. And as you could see, Paddy Clifford was only absolutely delighted. He couldn't control his excitement lifting the Munster Cup above his head. I mean, he literally just went like that and put it back down. It's right up there with James McCarthy lifting the Delaney Cup. Remember, was that in 2022 that James McCarthy literally just went like that and put it down? Like, little moments like that. And I know it's picky. I'm not going to go into it too much, but it does dent the competition. Because when you see them literally going like that, you're like, come on, man. At least act like you care. Like, at least act like you actually care if you won this competition.
I think so, yeah. Like, I think lift the trophy in the air. Like, I get it to a certain extent, because I think if Kerry had have celebrated, let's say, and lifted in the air and it was all smiles and everything else, then maybe people would have been like, well, you just be clear, Division 3 side, not playing particularly well, winning a Munster championship that you're expected to do. So I think that was probably an element to it. But at the same time, yeah, like at least just lift the trophy in the air, like, you know what I mean, rather than like a little like, but yeah, like it probably does sum it up though for Kerry. Like they obviously weren't entirely happy. Like even looking at Jack O'Connor in his post-match interview, didn't really look happy at all. I don't think majority of the Kerry fans were happy. Saying that though, like we've seen this with Kerry under Jack O'Connor numerous times, even in his previous spells in management. Like we all know that like if Kerry were playing Dublin out there, they would not play like that. Like if they were playing a bigger, do you know what I mean? They managed the game fairly well. They never looked like losing the game. There was a few, you know, hairy moments here and there, but all in all, for Kerry, the most important thing was get the victory, get the win, get over the line, not have any injuries, major injuries along the way. And obviously we'll see what happens with Gavin White. But overall, that was the main thing for Kerry. Just get through it, and then you move on to the group stage. But the interesting thing for Kerry though is like you look at the group that they're in, and obviously haven't played in Munster as well. Like they could arguably do with a big test. They could do with a big test, and are they going to get that in that group with Meath, Monaghan, and you'd have to say Louth? Probably not, to be honest with you. So it's interesting.
Yeah, no, it certainly is. And Jer has a question here which relates to the TikTok that I seen recently on your channel. It says the Munster final was definitely a better occasion for being played in Ennis. Leinster take note, €40 for a ticket to see Dublin tear Louth apart is tone deaf. I seen your TikTok on it. €40 for a ticket to a game where we all know what the end result is. Isn't great. Like, I mean, I said it's like paying €40 to go to watch a movie that you already know the ending. Like it's not. We know what's going to happen here. Dublin are going to batter Louth. They're going to win by at least 10 points. €40 to go see that. Imagine you want to bring your family. Like, imagine if you're going to bring your kids to the game. You're talking like €80, €90 to go watch a game that you already know the end result. Don't think many people will be queuing up for it. And I think when you look at it, in general, if you try lower the ticket prices, it's better to get more people in the gates with cheaper tickets rather than to get fewer people in the gates with more expensive tickets. And it makes for a better experience, which makes them more likely to return.
Yeah, absolutely crazy, to be honest with you. Like you could give tickets away for free for this game and it still wouldn't sell out. Not that way. Like obviously you've got the ladies football on before Dublin Meath, which I think we'll all agree will be a better game. It will be more entertaining, will be closer. But even at that, like having that game at 11:45, like that's absolutely scandalous as well.
That's so disrespectful, man. Like
I know, yeah. It's just like, why don't they just have the Meath Dublin game? Have I know obviously you have the Ulster final, and maybe a lot of people will leave because they want to watch that game. But like, why isn't the Dublin and Louth game on before? Like the Dublin Meath ladies game should be the main event there, in my opinion. Do you know what I mean? So it's
going to be the more competitive game.
Yeah, like, and do you know what I mean? And it's like it is just crazy to be honest with you. And like €40, €30 for a stand ticket. Like I think in Ennis it was €25. I think was the cost of the tickets. I think €35 was the cost. I think €30 and €35, €25 and €35 the tickets for the Connacht final. I don't know what the tickets are for the Ulster final because obviously those tickets.
What do you think a fair price is?
I think €20. I think €20 sit, €10 stand. I think that's, you know what I mean? Fair. I know we have a cost of living crisis and everything, and everyone else is putting up the prices and everything else or whatever. But I think that's completely fair. Like you look at the rugby, for example, at the weekend, it was €18 for a Hill ticket. I think it was, I don't know what, I think it was like
one and that's of my mates professional sport as well.
Yeah, and one of my mates got a ticket for a tenner. Do you know what I mean? He did. Now it was a restricted view, so I think it was behind the
screen.
But you could still see it quite clearly. So, like, I don't know. Like, it's a little bit ridiculous, to be honest with you. Like, surely they know what you're gonna get in Croke Park. You're probably gonna get 20,000, maybe at absolute max 20,000 for both games. You're probably not gonna have more than 10,000 or 12,000 in the stadium at one time, and then. Now then you have those prices as well. Like the amount of people that will look at those prices, and I know even mates who are Dublin fans and everything else who've gone, do you know, I might just go to the pub, watch the game, watch the Ulster final after.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, and it just, And I'm
But
sure
that's it. It's like I'm the same as you. Like I know hardcore dubs that like genuinely hardcore dubs, and I know that people would be like, "Well, how are they hardcore dubs if they didn't know about this?" It's because there's no drama, there's no excitement in it. But like Dubs fans that wouldn't have missed a game during the 2000s. By the way, when Dublin won nothing in the All Ireland sense, we only won Leinster titles in the 2000s, and even at that, we lost to Laois, we lost to Westmeath, we lost to Meath. Like we were very beatable in the 2000s, and like I knew people that didn't miss a game from 2000 to 2010 that didn't even know that Dublin were playing Meath in the quarterfinal on the day that they were, because there's no drama, there's no dilemma, there's no like who do we think is going to win, like, and once you don't have jeopardy, the crowds suffer. It's like trying to host a UFC event where you show them the results before. You're like, okay, this person's going to knock this person out in the first round, everything like that. Jerry says here again, main point lost in the ticket price. Leinster final should be played in Tullamore or Portlaoise is my point. Yeah, like I do agree with you. I think, like we were saying it in the video that we obviously recorded and which is coming out, is any games below 30,000, we were saying, should be Nolan Park or O'Moore Park or O'Connor Park. Like any game under 30,000, because you look at the Connacht final, for example, there was 25,000 people there, but it looked like a much better atmosphere than when Leinster has 25,000 people there. Looked like a much better atmosphere. So that's the one thing that I'd probably be pushing for. But going back to this game, obviously when people talk about Kerry and they talk about the performances that they're playing, they won this game by 7 points. But everybody's looking at where this is inevitably leading to, which is a potential showdown with a Dublin or a Derry somewhere down the line. And they are the only two teams that have beaten Kerry in 2024. And the way that Dublin beat them has a lot of people saying, can Kerry actually avenge their loss to Dublin last year? And when you see moments like Cork getting that goal very early on, causing a lot of problems for Kerry, Ike Maguire's goal for Clare, where he literally just went straight down the middle and burrowed his way through and stuck it in the back of the net. Brilliant finish. Like, you're looking at that saying, if Cork and Clare can create those goal chances so easily, we've seen what Dublin can do with creating goal chances with Conor O'Callaghan getting his hat-trick. This is where this is all leading to. So in terms of how Kerry are doing, how are they doing?
Yeah, that is the common trend, because throughout the league they were. Obviously the Dublin game in Croke Park stands out, and multiple other games as well, like where they've been conceding goals, and then in this game as well, like multiple goal chances. Obviously Dermot Coughlin's one, to be fair, wasn't really a goal chance. Like he was 20 yards out and he just went for it. Like not many other players would have done that, in fairness. So I don't know whether you could really count that as like a clear goal chance, but yeah, like generally speaking, like there does seem to be a lot, like even that Aguero goal, like it's sort of like he ran through them, then Kerry had enough players there to win the ball back, but then he still somehow managed to put the ball in the net. It was like, how has he actually gone and done that? So yeah, like that's 100% something for Kerry to work on, because, and look, I think they'll know that. Like I think Jack O'Connor will know that, and I think again, you won't really get to see the best of Kerry until they're playing in Croke Park and all on a quarter-final weekend. Like I wouldn't be surprised if there was a slip-up as well in the group stage. They might even lose to a Monaghan or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I do agree. Like it could definitely be on the cards. And most people keeping an eye on them is, to see, are they improving? Are they getting better before the ultimate showdown and rematch? From Clare's point of view, obviously they're into the All-Ireland series as well. Like, how do you see them shaping up? Obviously, like they're in Division 3, didn't get out of Division 3, probably should have got out of Division 3 with those, with that decision in the Westmeath game. How do you see them heading into the All-Ireland series?
Yeah, look, I think after this result, I think it gives them a chance. Like they're going to be in there with Cork, who obviously they beat last year. I think they'll fancy a Cork, in fairness. I think that will maybe be the game that could decide third. Weird thing with Cork is, we were speaking about Wexford Hurling earlier. Like Cork could lose to Clare but beat Tyrone. Do you know that way? Yeah. Like a little bit mad. But even like Clare, like looking at Clare's performance and looking like how inconsistent at times Tyrone have been. Not saying Clare will beat Tyrone, but I think they could be very competitive against them. Do you know? And obviously we'll see who comes through Ulster. They'll be in there with the Ulster winners as well. it's not impossible for them to at least finish third. And then after that is a bonus, really. If they get to a quarter-final, fine. If they don't, then cool. But I think when we all seen Clare go into the All-Ireland series, we were all kind of a bit worried, given the fact that, you know, obviously they only got in there because of the draw that they were in Munster beating Waterford. Whereas now it's like, okay, maybe they might be able to put up a fist to Cork and maybe one of the Ulster teams as well. So yeah, I think they'll be happy that they got in the group that they did.
Yeah, I think they'd be delighted with it. I think they were one of the winners out of the group. Certainly the Monaghan, Meath and Louth triangle. I think that they would have looked at that and thought, we can get out of this group. Like, there's definitely a path out of that group for all three of those teams. I think when you look at O'Rourke's comments after the Dublin game, I think he'll look at the Kerry game and go, well, we're not going to win that. Let's take that game off and let's focus on the Monaghan and Louth game and try get some results out of this. And I think maybe Louth and Monaghan might have that same mindset. I think Monaghan would fancy it the most out of the three. We're going to move on then to the final round of action from the Munster and Leinster LGFA Championships. And it was only one game that had obviously a variable in it, and that was which of would Cork book their place in the Munster final alongside Kerry, or would they slip up? They did book their place. They beat Tipperary by 11 points to 10. Katie Quirk obviously returning to 0.6 from frees, but the winner and the hero for Cork was Sive McGoldrick. She got the winning point in the last minute. Cork jump into the final where they will play against Kerry.
Absolutely, yeah. Massive result, obviously, for Cork to get over the line. And probably a lot closer than maybe people would have anticipated, in fairness, obviously, coming into the game. And yeah, obviously 2 frees or 2 points. One of them a free from Katie Quirk, like going into injury time to get themselves over the line. But look, fair play to Tip. They gave a really, really good go to it. Emma Morrissey with a couple of points there. Angela McGuigan getting on the score sheet as well. But ultimately for Cork, most important thing, get the result. And to be fair, they got it, but just about got it.
Yeah, they got over the line just about. And I mean, it's been a decent turnaround by Shane O'Neill. Obviously, like after their league campaign, which was unimaginably bad by Cork standards. I mean, to see, you know, consistent All-Ireland winners go down was absolutely extraordinary. But they are back into the Munster final. Good wins over Waterford and good wins over Tipperary. They did lose to Kerry, but they're going to play them again in the Munster final now. Kerry beat Waterford 1-8 to 1-7 in Cordo. A very tight game, this one. Kerry just about getting over the line. Waterford have made a habit of this, of really sticking it up to the big teams, making it sticky for them. They did this for Kerry again, albeit Kerry were obviously into the Munster final already. So could that have impacted this game?
Yeah, I think it could have. Like, I think Waterford were 3 points up, going into the final 10 minutes. And obviously Kerry managed to pull it back and get the victory from there. But yeah, like you'd imagine if this is a knockout championship game, Kerry are arguably a little bit better. Like obviously a lot of their big players and big stars obviously weren't playing. But like from Waterford, like fair play to Waterford. Waterford, as you said, that like in ladies football, they've been a very tough team to beat, and they don't seem to be going away, in fairness. And like they were very just a couple of minutes away from winning this game, in fairness.
Yeah, no, they certainly were. And like, I mean, when you look at it, Waterford, particularly in the league, they really, really put it up to the big teams when they went down, especially to Fraherfield. Like, it was always a difficult place to go. But then once the final is there, Kerry against Cork, do you see any differing results? They've played twice already this year. Kerry have won both. Do you see it being a sweep? Because historically, Kerry have struggled to beat Cork.
Yeah, I think Kerry should beat Cork. I mean, Cork are one of those sides. They, as you said before, they have All-Ireland winners in their team. They have experience. They will raise their game. There's no doubt about it. I don't see it being a complete, whitewash or anything like that. But I think for Kerry's progress that they've made in football over the last couple of years, they should be beating a Cork side that, as you said, they have turned it around a little bit in the last couple of weeks, but largely it has been
miles off what they were, even 5 years ago.
100%. Like even in the game versus Tip, like they just about got over the line, and we could have been talking about a different final here. So I think ultimately Kerry should win it, like relatively comfortable, like 4 or 5 points. But who knows? Maybe Cork will feel they can give a bit of a game of it.
Yeah, certainly. I would back Kerry as well. I think that, like, look, they've struggled for long enough with beating Cork. It seemed like over the last 3 years, no matter how much Cork standards were dropping, they always seem to be able to elevate themselves back up to beat Kerry in whatever games they played. But yeah, so that's going to be the most fun. I think Kerry will put that to right this year. I think Kerry are going to get the win there. Then moving over to Leinster, obviously Kildare managed to get their win. They beat Laois by 3 goals and 3 points to Laois's 10 points in Vanguard. 2 second half goals from Holly Tyrrell and 1 in the first half from Leah Doran. A weird scoreline. And Kildare, I haven't really known what to make of them because they were absolutely flying, winning the All-Ireland Intermediate Championship, winning Division 2 without losing a game. They looked untouchable. And I was kind of looking at them thinking, is this another Meath that we're seeing on the horizon where they're going to just absolutely elevate through the ranks? It felt like in the Leinster Championship, they ran into a bit of a brick wall when they ran into Meath and Dublin. It was like they got shown the levels a bit, like you've got a long way to go still to be able to compete with us. And then to win this game against Laois with such a weird scoreline, like I'm almost left with more questions than answers about them after this Leinster Championship.
Yeah, kind of is one of them score lines that you'd see, if you're looking back on results from the 1940s or something like that, you know what I mean? Like, and you're like, what on earth actually happened here? But yeah, look, a big win for Kildare because, as you said, playing against Dublin and Meath, like it was a massive reality check. I think we were expecting them to, can they get to the levels of Dublin and Meath? We've obviously saw Meath do it in the past after, coming up from lower tier competitions. But yeah, look, fair play to Kildare. They got the win, as you said. Holly Tyrrell with 2 big goals, which obviously was the difference. And yeah, I suppose a good end to the provincial championship for them.
That's it. But like, it's another thing to look at it and say, like, that scoreline is not maintainable. You cannot go into games and score 3 points and win. You're not going to get 3 goals in every game that you play. So I definitely think Diane O'Mara will look at that and be like, we need to up our levels going into the senior championship. Like, you're not going to get away with that. And the Leinster Championship, I think, has been a good litmus test for them to see where they're at. I don't think they're going to get relegated. I think they probably will survive in the senior championship for another year, but I definitely don't expect them to make an All-Ireland push. And then we had a dress rehearsal for the Leinster final. It's going to be these two going at it again in a couple of weeks' time, but Dublin beating Meath by this scoreline, 5-13 to 8 points in Parnell Park. Like, I know it's a dress rehearsal. I know that, we don't really talk about it. And I know that Armagh definitely changed the narrative when, they lost to Dublin by an absolute ton in the last round, but then turned it around and won the league final against Kerry a week later. But still, for me, psychologically, to lose this game by 20 points, like, it's not great preparation going into a Leinster final.
No, it definitely isn't. In fairness, like, and I know Meath maybe like changed their team quite significantly and won't probably have the same team out there, in a couple of weeks' time or next week. But yeah, like, it was an absolute demolition from Dublin. Like, Carla Rowe 1-2, Hannah Tyrrell 2 points, Caoimhe O'Connor with a goal, Nicole Owens got 2 goals as well. It was just. It was absolutely comfortable for Dublin. We were saying before, like, with the Dublin and Louth game in men's football next week, we know that game is going to be a convincing win for Dublin. Hopefully this result didn't turn any more fans off of maybe wanting to watch this game, because I think we need all the fans we can get in Croke Park. Otherwise, we mightn't get anyone in there at this stage. But yeah, like,
around the crowd.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, paid actors or something. I really don't know. What you'd have to do. But yeah, look, it's one of them where, like, ultimately it didn't mean anything. But at the same time, for me, like a 20-point defeat going into a Leinster final against the same team probably isn't really the preparation that you want. And for Dublin, look, like, after a win like that, confidence, momentum's going to be with them, and you probably would say it'd be hard to stop Dublin, to be honest, in that final. Don't think it would be 20 points, but I would still see Dublin winning it.
It's going to be very difficult to stop Dublin. Like, I'm looking at the team that Dublin had out. Like, Rachel Fleming has been very good in goal. Martha Byrne, I think, is very underrated. I think she's one of the best defenders in the country. You've obviously got Leah Caffrey in there as well. She didn't start this game. Sinead Goldrick was back at centre half back. She scored 3 points. Like, she's an absolute warrior for Dublin Aoife Kane's brilliant. Jennifer Dunn and Lauren McGee at midfield. Orla Nolan at centre forward is such a clever operator. Like, if you're talking IQ for the game, Orla Nolan is fantastic. Caoimhe O'Connor, Kate Sullivan, the pace that they have. And then you've got Annabelle Timothy, Hannah Tyrrell, Carla Rowe, Nicole Owens that are just finishers up front. Like, Nicole Owens finished with 2-1 in this game. Carla Rowe 1-2. Jennifer Dunn 1-2. Like, Dublin are looking very good. And I do back them in this Leinster final, which is the next question I'm putting to you. And Meath in this game, obviously they didn't have Emma Duggan. You'd imagine she's going to be straight back in there. But I don't see Meath level being able to go up enough to beat Dublin next week.
No. Like, I think being able to turn around a deficit of that much, you couldn't see it, in all honesty. And look, obviously, there's been a huge amount of changes in Meath in terms of players, managers, and everything else over the last couple of years since they won the All-Ireland. So you do wonder, is Dublin obviously won the All-Ireland last year. Are they now clear of Meath now? Like, is it back being kind of comfortable for Dublin in terms of this rivalry and everything else? It could very well be, by looking at it. So, like, you would look at Dublin and think, should beat Meath comfortably, 5 or 6. But I think for Meath, like, they need to make a game out of it, because if it is a 10, 12-point loss or something like that, then all of a sudden it's like, well, Meath have gone from All-Ireland contenders, from beating Dublin on a regular basis, All-Ireland winners, I should say,
back to back,
beating Dublin, on numerous occasions, to all of a sudden looking miles off it. Do you know what I mean? And I know players have left. Obviously, Amy Murray's no longer their manager and everything else, and they've had changes in managers since then. But at the same time, you'd wonder, like, what on earth has gone wrong?
You do. I think since Eamon Murray, they've made a few big mistakes, and Vicky Wall obviously leaving was huge, and then retirements like Orla Duff and Niamh O'Sullivan. Like, it seems like a lot of it has fallen quickly for me there, and you do wonder, can they bring it back? Players like Orla Lally as well that have gone to Australia, like, just quiet little losses like that, I think have been huge to kind of unstabling what was their base. And I think they need that back. I think if they can get Vicky Wall back, or get Orla Lally back the same way Dublin have got Sinead Goldrick back and got Jennifer Dunn to stick around even though she's in Australia, like, I think those are the levels. Like, you see Amy Mackin coming back for Armagh, all of a sudden Armagh straight back up to the top of the pecking order. Like, it's going to be really interesting. I'd say right now Dublin are my favourites to retain the All-Ireland. I don't see anybody stopping them. I think Kerry potentially, Armagh potentially as well. But I think it's going to be one of those three, Armagh, Dublin and Kerry. So again, very similar to the men's football. Obviously, Derry, Kerry and Dublin. I see the All-Ireland coming from one of those three. And Armagh, Dublin and Kerry in the LGFA. But yeah, so that is the weekend recap. It was a quieter weekend than previous weekends gone by. We have another busy weekend coming up next weekend, however. So do tune in on Wednesday. We're going to do a weekend preview. Until that episode, guys, thank you so much to anybody who commented, joined in, let your opinions be known. Until the next one, guys, An Cluiche, Torara.